Well, Joe Rogan and Elon Musk unmask Oprah and The Rock's scheme against Maui locals. Now, I know a lot of you guys have been following the story. And of course, the media has been kind of trying to sweep it under the rug for obvious reasons. But in the world of high profile celebrities, very few names shine nearly as brightly as Oprah Winfrey and Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Now, these two icons, they have literally captured the hearts of millions of people with their charisma, their talent, their philanthropy, giving away money, helping out people wherever they can. However, some recent events in this beautiful island of Maui have literally just kind of thrust them into a series of controversy that's just basically raising eyebrows, and it's prompting a lot of tough questions about what's really going on with Maui, with The Rock, and with Oprah. It all started with a devastating wildfire that ultimately spiraled into this huge storm of accusations, suspicions, and outrage. It's not uncommon for wildfires to start naturally, right? Wildfires start naturally, right? Especially in a place like Maui. It's got a lot of dry conditions, gusty winds. In fact, it was very, very windy that day, if you guys remember. However, the suspicion that these particular fires may not have necessarily started naturally began to take root. People began to think that these fires weren't necessarily a natural occurrence. And the skepticism wasn't just confined to these particular islands. These islands, the skepticism regarding the fires on these islands have literally just kind of manifested, and it found its way all the way to the mainland, where two very influential figures, they were preparing to expose what they believed were some very troubling developments. Now, Joe Rogan, very outspoken comedian, podcaster, known for his no-holds-barred style. So Joe Rogan had partnered with none other than Elon Musk in order to dig a little bit deeper into the Maui fires. Now, Joe Rogan and Elon Musk's concerns about the whole situation kind of mirrored those of many people, many island residents, Lahaina, Maui, and even beyond, extended well beyond the flames themselves. And of course, not to mention the families of those who, the families of those who don't necessarily live in Maui, but they have family members in Maui, are also affected. So during an episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan and his guest, Tulsi Gabbard, she's a former representative for Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District, delved into the whole response to the devastating wildfires that had essentially rocked the entire island of Maui.
On television, after a massive tragedy where we don't even know the number of people dead yet. You have this massive area that's been burnt to the ground. Yeah. And then he starts talking about taking it over for the state. That's an insane position to take.
It is.
Post-tragedy. When people are suffering at their most, they can't even believe it happened.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's saying, we're going to take it for the state and make a memorial? How about give the people their homes back?
So what followed was a very candid conversation that shed a little bit of light on the state's very questionable handling of the crisis.
Calculated how much money we had set aside for Ukraine. So we have an extra $4 billion to send now that we didn't know we had. And this has happened a few times. Secretary of State Tony Blinken went to Kiev yesterday promising, hey, we're going to give you another $1 billion now. And this is the thing. When I was out there in Maui, person after person was like, Tulsi, tell me what would happen if we started to call ourselves Ukraine. You think they would give us some money then?
Let me know if you guys have any family members in Maui, or if you know anyone, if you know someone who lived in Maui or was affected by this. Just let me know what you know of. I really appreciate your boots on the ground, anecdotal knowledge of what you've experienced. So just share whatever you have experienced, no matter how small it is. I love to hear from you guys. So imagine the unimaginable, right? A massive wildfire just pretty much ravaging through a very pristine landscape. Beautiful place. Beautiful place. It's a vacation destination, right? Leaving behind a trail of destruction. And that's precisely what happened on this beautiful island of Maui, right? A place that's known for its lush landscapes, as far as the eye can see, vibrant culture, amazing food, and very welcoming communities, very humble people who live there, right? People who live there, years, decades, right? So the flames consumed acres of land. These flames destroyed homes. They caused wildfires, widespread suffering. And beyond that, as the fires started raging, the island's residents were looking for answers and for assistance, and they were hoping for a swift and ideally a compassionate response. But what came next was a sequence of events that left a lot of people questioning the intentions of not just local authorities, but also two of the most recognizable celebrities, Oprah Winfrey and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So now Oprah Winfrey, she's the media mogul with a net worth of billions of dollars. She's no stranger to the world of real estate. Oprah Winfrey I don't know if she's necessarily a real estate investor, but she certainly has a lot of real estate investments. So does that make her a real estate investor? I don't really know. I mean, I know she's got, 1,000 or 1 or 2,000 acres of land in Maui. She's got multiple properties and around the world. I want to say Montecito, California, several mansions in California. That's a lot of real estate. So is she a real estate investor? I mean, maybe not. In contrast to her net worth, I mean, this is a small amount or a small percentage in my opinion. But anyway, so over the years, Oprah has amassed a very impressive portfolio of properties, and her latest acquisition raised more than a few eyebrows. So Oprah Winfrey purchased a staggering 870 acres of land in Kailua, Maui for a jaw-dropping $6.6 million. Now, I'm no real estate investor in the state of Hawaii or, certainly not on the island of Maui, but $6.6 million for 870 acres of land in Kailua, Maui is a steal. That's a steal. Just to give you a perspective, I don't live in Maui or anywhere near that, but I'll just tell you what, the cost of living where I live is much less expensive than it is in Maui. And for $6.6 million, you'd be lucky to get like 100 acres. So matter of fact, you'd be lucky to get 100 acres. So just in comparison, 100 acres for $6.6 million where I'm at versus 870 acres of land in Maui for $6.6 million. That is a ridiculous Walmart fire sale if I've ever heard one. Anyway, let me know how much land costs around you guys. But this wasn't just any land either. This land was a part of the very iconic Yulpakua Ranch. And so this made it even more valuable. Let's just say that. So the acquisition alone was enough to send shockwaves through the entire island's very tight-knit community. And anybody who knows the city of Maui, the island of Maui, they don't let go of their land very easily. Let's just put it that way. And so the whole conversation about land came to fruition. It was already a large purchase, but then all of a sudden, so much of a violent wildfire has taken place. It really just it magnified the suspicions. Now, for a place where land holds very deep cultural significance and is very frequently passed through the generations, usually the land won't ever leave the family. Because if I own land, this is the way that tradition works as far as I understand. If I own land, then I'm likely to pass this land down to my son or my daughter or, whatever kids I have, right? You'd pass it down to, and maybe if you don't have any kids, you pass it down to your niece or your nephew, something like that, right? Anyway, so usually land is passed down through the generations, through families. So anyway, Oprah's purchase was seen as a signal of her growing influence in the island's real estate. Now, but this was just tip of the iceberg, right? So Oprah already owned about 100 acres of land in upcountry Maui. And in the span of just a few years, she had gone from relatively, modest landowner, from basically just, I would say 100 acres is still a modest landowner, right? To one who ultimately possessed nearly 1,000 acres of prime Hawaiian real estate. That's a big jump. And, so a lot of questions started swirling around about her intentions. Many started to wonder, whether or not her vast land holdings had played any kind of role in the recent tragedy that was experienced in Maui. So Tulsi Gabbard, who served as a representative for the people of Hawaii, she was very well acquainted with the issues facing the state. And during their discussion, both Joe Rogan and Tulsi Gabbard ultimately raised several concerns about the state's response to the fires. And that's a whole nother mess right there, right? And what stood out the most was the governor's statement about, that the state was considering taking ownership of the land that was affected by the fires. And so this started swirling around this, the idea of, was this a land grab? Was this planned? That kind of thing. So the idea was met with a lot of backlash immediately. And, in the aftermath of such a tragedy, when residents were still reeling in from their losses, the notion of the state swooping in to claim their land was viewed as, not being very sensitive to the situation, and just about unconscionable. Like, how could you do that? How could you do such a thing, right? And it seemed like a gross misjudgment of the entire situation, and of course the emotions of the affected community, right? So the people of Lahaina, including very prominent figures like Archie Kappa, a renowned surfer and a community leader, and you got native Hawaiian leaders and families who had ultimately resided in Lahaina for 9 generations. It's a long freaking time, guys, right? They were deeply concerned about the state's interest in taking ownership of their land. And the fear was that they would not only lose their homes, but also the very essence of their community. So, while the government was considering taking control of the land, the residents of Lahaina were left to essentially grapple with the aftermath of these fires. And what added to their frustration was the lack of assistance from local authorities. So Tulsi Gabbard pointed out that, I keep saying Gabbard, it's Tulsi Gabbard. She pointed out that no one from the county, from the state, or even the federal government has shown their face in their community. It's pretty messed up, especially for such a significant event, such a significant tragedy. And in a time of crisis, it was neighbors helping neighbors and family, supporting families that kept them going. The power lines, why were they not de-energized? Why was the water shut off? What happened to the FEMA alert system? Like, all sorts of different questions had come up, right? And it was a stark reminder that sometimes in the face of danger, it's the community itself that provides the most vital support. And at the end of the day, the only person you can really depend on is you, maybe your neighbor, right? So in a bid to alleviate some of the suffering, President Joe Biden had pledged to donate to the cause. So, he basically said, he wanted us to know on behalf of the United States of America that, all the American people stand with the people of Lahaina, Maui. And, however, his promise seemed to ring hollow as the people of Lahaina continued to wait for some meaningful assistance. I guess $700 doesn't quite go as far as President Biden thought it did. Nice gesture, but, little light on the assistance there, right? So this lack of help was particularly frustrating given that Hawaii, already has the highest cost of living in the entire country. So I can't imagine why you would think, if $1,200 checks didn't go very far, what would make you think that $700 checks, when people have lost everything, would go very far at all, given that the tragedy took place in the most expensive, the highest cost of living area in the entire country, number one. But number two, after we've seen record high inflation, and these people have, by and large, lost everything. So why would you think $700 is enough to do anything? That's beyond me. So anyway, it felt like a very cruel twist for an entire community that was already struggling to make ends meet. So anyway, in the midst of this crisis, Oprah Winfrey and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson launched their Maui Fund, right? So it's a charitable initiative which was aimed at helping with Maui's recovery. Now, on the surface, it appeared to be a very noble endeavor, a chance for two A-list celebrities to use their wealth, to use their influence, to use their social media following for the greater good. So they pledged $5 million to the fund, which is a significant amount of money that could definitely make a real difference. So, anyway, as the details of this particular fund from, between Oprah and The Rock began to emerge, so did a lot of concerns about its mismanagement, a lot about the transparency of the fund. And it seemed that not all of the pledged funds would necessarily go directly to reach the wildfire victims. And that's what a lot of people questioned. Instead, it appeared that a significant portion might be allocated to administrative related costs. And so more and more scrutiny, questions began to surface. So anyway, so the Maui fund was being administered by the Maui Fund was allegedly being administered by the Entertainment Industry Foundation, the EIF, which is a nonprofit organization known for its involvement in various charitable initiatives. Now, while there's no doubt that, the EIF has done substantial philanthropic work, it raised some questions about the allocation of the funds in this particular instance, right? And an audit of the funds ended up beginning to reveal some startling facts. The CEO of the EIF was earning a salary ranging from $700,000 to $1 million. It's rather substantial for a nonprofit organization. Now, a lot of people don't realize that nonprofit doesn't mean you don't make money. Nonprofit organizations make a lot of money, many of them. So I just wanted to go ahead and put that out there. Now, for many, this revelation was a bitter pill to swallow. And then when you look at the fact that, the idea that a significant portion of the funds being donated by very well-meaning individuals may be going towards some fairly, let's just say, hefty salaries and administrative expenses, it seemed a little bit, not necessarily congruent with the spirit of the philanthropic actions. Now, I'm not saying how much someone should get paid. I'm not trying to get all up in other people's bank accounts and wallets, but I don't think that the average American would look at a $700,000 to $1 million annual salary. I don't think most people are okay with that, especially if they're donating their dollars. If me and you are not rich and we're trying to help some people in the state of Maui or in the island of Maui, and that a significant portion of your donation, which is a sacrifice for you to make, it's a sacrifice for me to make, and for me to know if I donate, $100 or $500 or $1,000 or whatever, however much I decide to donate, if I know that a significant amount of that donation isn't going to the people who I hope to help, I'm going to be a little bit uneasy about that. Drop me some likes if you guys are enjoying the content. Also, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. I would love to have you guys a part of the community. I love to share information like this with you guys and to have these types of conversations. Now, as the news of the Maui's fund's management spread, more outrage and skepticism began to mount. Social media platforms, Twitter, TikTok, formerly known as X, or I should say now known as X, Facebook started going off, Snapchat, you name it, right? Instagram. So basically all these social media platforms started buzzing about, the criticism about how the fund is set up, where's the money really going, yada, yada, yada. A lot of individuals started encouraging or urging others to donate directly to the victims through platforms like GoFundMe and PayPal. The sentiment was very clear. People wanted to make sure that their contributions went directly to those who are in need, not to wealthy individuals who are already wealthy. So, it wasn't just ordinary citizens who expressed concern. Celebrities, too. They weighed in on the controversy as well. You got Bryce Mitchell, a UFC fighter who recently won a very close fight. He donated $5,000 to Hawaii's wildfire recovery efforts. And he also voiced his doubts about the natural origin of the fire, suggesting that they may very well have been man-made. Now, amidst the controversy surrounding the Maui Fund and, of course, the involvement of celebrities, another disturbing development came to light. So reports emerged of real estate investors coming from outside of Maui, started basically flocking in like vultures, circling the disaster zone and attempting to purchase land from homeowners that had essentially lost everything that they owned in the fires. Not a good look, guys. Not a good look. So these real estate offers were viewed as predatory and opportunistic, taking advantage of people's misery and desperation. I can only imagine the types of lowball offers that these real estate opportunists were offering to the people. But anyway, I'll save that for another video. So imagine losing your home to a wildfire and then having having out of town investors knocking on your door, ringing your cell phone, hoping to capitalize on your misfortune. It's pretty messed up. It's pretty jacked up, right? So the practice drew the ire of local authorities who swiftly moved in to put a stop to these particular types of unethical practices, to say the least, right? So the controversy surrounding Oprah Winfrey, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and the Maui fires is just a stark reminder of the power of influence, celebrity, and philanthropy. And it raises questions about the role that celebrities play in disaster recovery efforts, the transparency of charitable initiatives, and of course, the need for accountability in times of crisis. Now, in the aftermath of the Maui fires, one thing is very clear. The world is watching. Tragedy that unfolded in this wonderful, beautiful island. It brought together a community in its darkest hour and exposed a lot of the complexities of celebrity philanthropy, I should say. And it just serves as a reminder that, regardless of somebody's status or influence or number of followers, number of subscribers or whatever, number of Twitter followers and whatnot, transparency, compassion, and accountability should always be at the forefront of any kind of disaster response and charitable efforts. And, as the people of Maui continue to rebuild their lives and their island, the controversy surrounding Oprah Winfrey, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and of course the Maui fires will serve as a lasting reminder of the importance of doing right by those in need, especially in the face of adversity. Now, I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, it's a wild situation. There's a lot of emotion that's surrounding this thing here. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot, and if Oprah can get 870 acres in Maui for $6.6 million. People hear about that, right? That's people are going to hear about that kind of deal. So if a fire erupts, whether it's a wildfire or man-made, that remains to be seen, that remains to be fully confirmed. I can imagine why so many offers started flooding in, because it's like, hey, maybe now, I can get in and get a deal on some real estate. No, I'm not saying me. I'm just saying I'm just thinking maybe that's what the investors were thinking. Man, Oprah got a great deal on real estate with these Maui fires. Let me hurry up and get my real estate agent on the phone. And, we've already got a tight housing market. Land is very hard to come by because in, Maui, in the vicinity of Lahaina, the land typically doesn't ever even hit the market. So it's like you can't even buy land. And so that makes it even more valuable, right? Because the tradition is that the land is passed down from generation to generation. And, some of these Maui residents, many of them actually own their land free and clear, no mortgage, 100% debt free. And in a location in Hawaii where the cost of living is so expensive, this may be the only way for families to survive. Imagine this. If the cost of living is so high and your land is paid for, if you pass that land down to the next generation, it makes it so that their cost of living is significantly reduced because they don't have to pay a mortgage necessarily, right? They don't necessarily have to pay, today's prices for real estate. They just have to pay property taxes, utilities, insurance, those kind of things, right? So that makes it much more manageable for, communities and families in Lahaina. So imagine if you're barely getting by with a paid off piece of real estate. It may be worth $1 million, $2 million, $5 million for all I know, right? But because it's so expensive, a $2 million house in Lahaina really doesn't get you much. It really doesn't get you much. Now, if you lived in Texas or Florida or Alabama or something like that, South Carolina, $2 million would get you something real nice, real fancy, a mansion, guaranteed. Maybe not in all parts of Florida, but certainly in Texas, Alabama, South Carolina, the Midwest. But in Lahaina or Maui, $2 million is going to more than likely look like a $300,000 house in most parts of the United States. So imagine if they lost everything. They lost everything in those fires, and then suddenly, you're trying to rebuild. Well, now you have to buy. If you're trying to get into some new real estate, you're going to pay today's prices. But on top of that, guess what? Thousands of people are now looking for property. Thousands of people need a place to stay. So what do you think is going to happen with real estate prices? You're going to see an asset appreciation explosion take place because the demand for real estate immediately went through the roof. So now anyone who's got real estate that hasn't been destroyed by the fires has instantly gone up. And, rent prices will go up. Everything will go up. So this is devastating. This is devastating, guys. I'm reading your comments, but let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know what you guys think. Drop me some comments. I hope you dropped a like for the video. Also consider subscribing to the channel. Share this video with someone who you think needs to hear about this. I think a lot of people need to hear about this. They need to know what's going on. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you guys hanging out, and I'm going to see you guys on the next one. You guys be safe.